Hey, Jared here. Welcome to Eating Enlightenment, former binge eating wrestler turned Zen monk turned eating coach counselor. And I help people, overeaters, deal with the mental and emotional stuff to stop self sabotage and develop healthy eating habits. And today we're going to be covering in depth why you can't stop thinking about food. And we're going to be using the metaphor of the labyrinth, trapped in the labyrinth. You're trying to get out, you're trying everything, but you're just trapped in the labyrinth. And we're really going to be drawing upon the story of the Minotaur. If you're familiar with this story, it's an ancient Greek myth where a king, the queen of this Greek king, she mated with a bull. And the king was furious. So he locked away the queen and the bull's offspring in this dungeon, this labyrinth. And now, long story short, this hero, Theseus, needs to go and kill the Minotaur to win over the new king, and the king's daughter um, gives him a ball of thread so that when he goes into the labyrinth, this dark labyrinth with all these twists and turns, he can kill the Minotaur and then he can retrace his steps with the thread so that he's able to get out of the labyrinth. And what I want to be focusing on today is, what if you grabbed the wrong string? What if you're in the labyrinth and the traditional things that you are told to use to get out of the labyrinth don't work? What's going to happen? Well, like this guy in the picture, if you're trapped in a labyrinth and you can't get out, you're going to go freaking nuts. And that's what people are like with food. They are really, it's that feeling where like you lose your car keys. You ever lost your car keys? You know that feeling? And you need to find them. Just the other day, I lost my car keys. And it's like the only thing I could think about was, where did I put my car keys? Where did I put my car keys? And when you're in the labyrinth, it's the same thing. How do I get out of this labyrinth? How do I stop thinking about food? Why can't I stop thinking about food? It's like your mind is trapped and it can't get out. And it's just really annoying. And this is even worse because there's this movie, The Changeling. This is what it reminds me of. In this movie, The Changeling, Angelina Jolie, her son is kidnapped, and she goes to the police, and they basically tell her she's crazy. They tell her, you know, this is your son is not missing. You're a bad mom, and she starts to doubt herself. People start to think she's crazy, and this has to do with food because you know what if with food people judge you, right? Like she's starting to break down and people are telling her it's all her fault. She's starting to break down. She didn't do anything wrong. People are judging her, calling her crazy. And this is like with food, you know, the standard weight loss advice, all this crap over here on, you know, create a calorie deficit, exercise, blah, blah, blah. This is all the wrong string. And when you try to be healthy and you try to pull on these strings and they don't work, you're still trapped in the labyrinth. People start to think you're crazy. They say, "Why can't you get out of the labyrinth? What's wrong with you?" Right? They put the blame on you. And so it just, it's like the wrong string. And the more you tug at this string, the farther into the labyrinth you go. The more you try the standard weight loss advice, and we're going to be going into why it doesn't work. The more you're trapped, the more people judge you, and it sucks. And it creates this vicious cycle. And now, what is this wrong string, right? If the calorie deficit mentality, whatever that is the wrong string. If grabbing at that string just makes you go nuts, gets you further trapped, makes people judge you even more, it doesn't work, it leads to weight gain in the long run. You lose weight, gain it back even more. What is that string? And in a nutshell, what we'll be exploring here is the wrong string is logic. Logic is great, don't get me wrong, but we need to balance out the logic with the heart, with the emotions, right? Right now we have all these plans, all these logical calories and nutrition labels and meal plans and exercise 3 times a week at this time and make sure you get your macros here. And it's great, don't get me wrong, but it's out of balance, right? So more pulling at the string more of the logical mind, try harder, be more disciplined, work out harder, eat healthier. That's the wrong string. You need to balance it out with the emotion. And so this is like there's this statue, Rodin's Thinker. All these Greeks, right? They got all these statues and these great stories. Um, Rodin's Thinker, he's thinking. And if you look at that statue, he's hunched over. He's lost in thought. I'm in the Bay Area, and there's this statue up at Stanford. And so I went one time to see it, and it's in this big room, and you know, he's just lost in thought. And then the thing here is, should I order this? Should I order that? What should I eat? Should I eat this? Should I eat that? The labyrinth all over again. And so how do we start to get out, right? I mean, this stuff drives people crazy, thinking about all the food, seeing food logically. It drives people crazy. It's information overload. It just puts you further into the information labyrinth and just drives you nuts. So let's actually explore further into why you can't stop thinking about food. We're going to go really deep here. We're going to start off with the obvious one. The obvious one is that without connection to your body, and I'm saying right here without emotion, but I do mean connection to your body, without the heart, without the body, without the emotions, without the feelings, you miss out on your needs. And at the bottom of the pyramid, physiological needs, and one of these is food. All right. So this is the very bottom of the pyramid. When you are so focused on weight loss and all these calories and stuff, a lot of times, a lot of the people I work with, they don't, not everyone that I work with, but oftentimes people don't know their hunger cues. They aren't even aware when they're hungry. They're eating at certain times. They're not listening to if they're even hungry. They're not listening to if they're full. And basically, they're thinking about, how do I lose weight? And this makes them really starving at times. This is the obvious reason. Don't get me wrong. There are plenty of people that are eating fine and they still struggle with food. And we'll get into those reasons in just a second. But this most obvious reason is that when you are in your head and you're not in your body, you get disconnected from your body's hunger. This maybe you got a big to-do list, you're a caregiver, you're 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 working at your job, you're taking care of your family, you have no time for yourself, no time to eat. You get too hungry, right? So if you get too hungry, you will think about food and you won't be able to stop thinking about food. So this is the number one reason you can't stop thinking about food. And this happened to me too in wrestling. I would lose weight, cut weight, think about food to manage my weight, and all I could think about was food because I was chronically starved. And then I'd binge. All right, so that's the most obvious reason. You're probably familiar with it. You're probably familiar with this next reason too, is that food helps you meet your safety needs. Comfort eating. Food helps you soothe. A lot of people that come to me, they're aware that they are eating to feel better. They're aware that they're using food to manage their emotions, and they're sort of wondering like, why can't I stop this? And to do that, we got to go another layer deeper. But first, let's spend a moment and just think about how food helps you meet your safety needs here, right? It's like you start off with the best of intentions. I'm going to live in the present moment. I'm going to, you know, this is when you get back off the wagon. You know how you fall off the wagon with a binge, and then the next day you're like, okay, restart, fresh start. I'm going to be good. I'm going to be pure. I'm going to do everything right. And then, when shit hits the fan, I go back to the cookie, right? The cookie helps you calm down. If you're stressed out, it helps you distract. There's a lot of ways food actually helps you manage your emotions, and food actually helps you meet your safety needs. And so it's really important that we grasp this. This is like one of the most important points in this video, so listen up. Look at this penguin trying to fly. Can you guess what's going to happen to that penguin in about 1 second? That penguin is going to smack back down on the planet, onto the ice, and it's going to skid, and it ain't going to fly. So the lesson here is you can try to be like the penguin, and you can try to escape your emotional needs. You can try to ignore them, but just like gravity, you are going to come back down to earth. All right? So if you're not meeting your safety needs, if you're not feeding yourself, you will turn to food automatically. You will not have a choice. Your subconscious brain will make you overeat to feel safe. All right. So you do not have a choice here. You can't just ignore your needs and expect to get away with it. Okay. So, very important that you understand this because when you don't meet your safety needs and you turn to food, this is just cause and effect. Penguin jumps, comes back down to earth. Cause and effect, right? And so here's where we get into this the type 2 error. So this is number three, third reason, third and final reason why you can't stop thinking about food. This is where things get really, really interesting, but also horrible. Well, so type 2, it's in the bottom. And type 2 is where you see reality, but you don't see it accurately. And you make a false conclusion. All right. So here's an example. The type 2 error on the right is this woman, she's pregnant, and the doctor is describing reality falsely. You're not pregnant, right? So they're making a false conclusion. Now, let's tie this into eating. In eating, after you binge, right? So there's this binge cycle, right? After you binge, you are making a type 2 error. You are interpreting reality incorrectly. So here's some things how you misinterpret reality. I can't stop eating. I feel out of control around food. You know, I had one piece, like the F it mentality, the what the hell effect. I had one piece, so now I got to have the whole plate. And then I'm worthless. I have no willpower. I'm lazy. I can't do this. I'm broken. These are type 2 errors. These are conclusions that are false, right? Like that pregnant woman. They're false. She was pregnant. So by saying she wasn't pregnant, they weren't describing her correctly. So basically, what I'm saying is you're concluding that you're broken. And what this does is it creates this pattern where you aren't seeing the big picture. You're missing the big picture. You've only been taught to think. Your whole childhood, your parents probably only taught you to manage food by thinking. And now you're trying to manage your emotional needs by thinking instead of feeling and doing this emotional thing. Thinking falls short. Your emotional needs don't get met. So you have to turn to food to meet your emotional needs. You have to. Your brain makes you turn to food, right? And then here's where it goes wrong. You think you're broken. The type 2 error at the bottom. You think you're broken. You think that because you cannot meet your needs through thinking that you are broken. See how this is a false conclusion? You can meet your needs if you do this feeling, if you do this childhood work, if you do this mindfulness work, you explore your beliefs, you can meet your needs. You are not broken. But your type 2 error is that you are saying to yourself, I am broken because I cannot think to meet my needs. Therefore, you conclude I'm broken. And the thing is, this is where things get interesting. This is truly why you can't stop thinking about food. The paranoia. The paranoia. Remember, just like a penguin cannot fly, you have to meet your emotional needs somehow. That's why people turn to drugs, right? They turn to all sorts of things to meet their emotional needs. But when you meet your emotional needs now, you're feeling bad about it. You're feeling like you did something wrong. When you turn to food to meet your emotional needs, you're feeling guilty about it. You're feeling like you screwed up. And so you're in this bind where you want to meet your emotional needs, but by trying to meet your emotional needs, you create self hatred, you create suspicion and anger and all this fear. And so it creates this intolerable condition. It's a catch-22 actually. This little picture, you know, gotta have job experience, job required, and he has got no experience. So how do you get your foot in the door, right? Same with this thing. You try to be good. You try to be disciplined. You try to be healthy. You're trying. You're thinking. You're exerting effort. You're trying. But you're not meeting your emotional needs, and you collapse. And without knowledge, without wisdom, without enlightenment about the emotional needs and how to do it, you're stuck in the same pattern. Try harder again. It's your fault. Try harder again. It's your fault. Try harder again. It's your fault. But when I try harder, it doesn't work. Well, try even harder. You see that catch 22? When you try hard, it doesn't work. So try even harder. But trying hard doesn't work. Try even harder. It creates this catch 22. And all the while, all this like paranoia is setting in because every time you think about meeting your emotional needs, now it's like, oh gosh, like, am I bad? Am I, am I broken here? Here's this horrible catch 22. And this catch 22 is why you can't stop thinking about food. So I hope this kind of makes sense. You're hungry, but you can't eat. You don't know how to meet your emotional needs. No one ever taught you. No one teaches this shit, by the way. I mean, for me, I had to learn it through becoming a freaking Zen monk. I had to learn it by going to therapy for a long time. And not to say that you need to be a Zen monk in therapy, you just need a few tools that can help you piece together these things. If you look at on the website, people get better in a few months. It's not terribly hard to learn these new skills, but you got to learn these new skills. No way around it. You got to be able to meet your emotional needs without thinking. Because if you're thinking and trying and doing instead of being, you're in the wrong paradigm. You're in the wrong gear. And the catch 22 happens because you're in the wrong gear and you don't see the escape route, right? You got the wrong string. You're grabbing onto the wrong string. You're trapped in the wrong string. Instead of doing, you got to shift to being. It's a tough shift. I hope this kind of makes sense though. Um, you know, so just to recap, the three main reasons you can't stop thinking about food is one, you're grabbing the wrong string. And this wrong string of thinking and doing and hard work and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, oftentimes, not all the time, but it oftentimes makes you skip meals, makes you too busy at work to eat, too busy. And if you're too hungry, you binge, right? And if you're too hungry, you can't stop thinking about food. Now, oftentimes, there's a different reason the food safety, right? Food makes you feel comfortable. It helps you meet your safety needs, helps you feel secure, powerful, in control. These are safety needs. And so you need to meet your safety needs. You will meet your safety needs. You will. You have to, actually, as a human. You can't get around it. You cannot. Um, and so if you're thinking about meeting your safety needs, eventually the thinking falls short. It's the wrong string. You go to food. Food helps you kind of meet your safety needs. You do calm down. You do feel more in control. Does distract you, that type of thing. But it's all temporary, right? It's all an illusion. It doesn't really make your headache go away. But then you get in this catch 22 where you meet your needs, but there's consequences to meeting your needs. The weight gain almost isn't worth meeting your needs. So you're caught in this catch 22. You gotta try harder to meet your needs, but when you try harder to meet your needs, it doesn't work. So try harder. It makes you go freaking nuts. So that's really why you can't stop thinking about food. It's this catch 22 where you're in the wrong mode. And there is a way to get out. You can visit eatingenlightenment.com for more information. I also give away all this stuff on my YouTube channel. This is not I'm not trying to anyways, I give it away all on my YouTube channel. There's tons of free resources out there. I'm Jared. Yeah, you can visit anywhere online, Eating Enlightenment. I try to share all this stuff for free. Today is just about why you can't stop thinking about food, really drilling into that catch 22. So let me know if you have any questions, and we will end it at that. Let me see. Yeah, that's the last slide. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, and namaste.